I'm also a very big advocate of almost anything in the game being soloable if you're a good enough player. I don't like how in Lost Ark there's a lot of mechanics in the game that require you to have like 6 party members or 5 party members. I loved how, like, Vulcan, if you had one literal god, they could solo Vulcan. That was insane. Like, so all these days? Yeah, exactly, right? That's so cool. And then they got rid of that because they're like, oh, people getting carried. Who cares? Like, it doesn't matter. Who gives a shit? Same with Night Rain? Yeah, exactly. Night Rain's the same way.
Time portals are anomalies formed by distortions in the flow of time.
It's a gatekeeping mechanic?
You'll encounter the world
Oh, it's an anti-carry mechanic.
Reimagined in entirely different timelines.
Remove the time
from the
wedge.
past or the future. Though the surroundings may look familiar, the world around you shifts dramatically. You must stay alert to conquer any threats that may arise.
Yeah, this seems okay.
Within these portals,
I am getting the same vibe of the Korean New World, though.
Valuable items.
In terms of, like,
There's one thing that almost everyone agrees about when it comes to the Foundation TV series' first season. The invention of the genetic dynasty was a great way to solve a significant problem in adapting Isaac Asimov's classic series of science fiction books for television. Of course, casting Lee Pace's brother Day didn't hurt either, but in an epic story that spans centuries, giving the Empire side of the story characters that would stick around is a much better fit for the format of a multi-season television series. If you think about it, by the beginning of the second season, we've met 8 different Cleons, which would have required a lot of actors, and some of those were only in a few scenes. It's an idea born of necessity, but it also opens up a lot of exciting possibilities, and setting it up as a trio who appear at different ages and stages in their development is a unique way to go about it. I originally made this video during the first half of Season 2, and it only covered the Cleons that had appeared at that point. Now that Season 3 is on the horizon, I've updated it to include the clones we met in the second season now that we know how their stories played out. Having a dynasty of clones, essentially the same man running things for centuries, is a way for the show to craft compelling stories about the rulers overseeing the Galactic Empire's decline, prophesied by Harry Seldon's psychohistory. If Harry's math turns out to be correct, then it's a foregone conclusion that the Cleons will have a key role in the final phase of the current galactic government. It also presents a way to introduce and include his robotic advisor Edo Demerzel in this part of the in-world history, something that Asimov didn't think of until much later. There is a character named Cleon the First in the books, but I'll come back to that because it's somewhat complicated to explain the differences. First, let's get into how the show uses the genetic dynasty to provide some character continuity while still having some variation, since even from the beginning, the clones aren't exactly the same. The genetic dynasty refers to the individual clones of Cleon the First as exponents, and at any given time, 3 of them live in the Imperial Palace. One of the primary reasons for using clones is to avoid crises of succession. So new clones are introduced, or decanted as the show refers to it, on a 30-year cycle. Brother Day is the primary leader of the Empire, who sits on the center throne from the ages of 30 to 60. At this point, he's christened with his number in the line of succession and has the final say in matters of the Empire. Demerzel and his elder brother advise him, and he mentors his younger brother and eventual successor. That brother is referred to as Brother Dawn from infancy until he turns 30, when it's his turn to take the center throne. Demerzel raises him. His role is to learn how to rule from his elder brothers. The eldest is Brother Dusk, who lives a life of retirement after stepping down from the throne from the age of 60 to 90. When he reaches that age, he becomes Brother Darkness. It's at this point he's euthanized in an ascension ceremony where each Cleon is elevated to their next position, and the new infant Brother Dawn is decanted. As Brother Dusk, he functions as an advisor and elder statesman. He's also responsible for maintaining and adding to the Mural of Souls, which documents the galaxy's 400 years of prosperity and peace under Cleonic rule. As the seasons have progressed, we've seen that murals are located throughout the Imperial Palace, which in a way has become a character itself. Serving as the Imperial residence and seat of government, it's located at the galactic core on Trantor. The capital planet is an Ecumenopolis, which is essentially a single city that covers the entire world with at least 80 subterranean levels where the citizens live and work. In Season 1, we saw how Trantor designers utilized artificial projections to simulate the skies and stars below the ground. The Imperial Palace is one of the few places on Trantor where you can observe the natural sky from the surface. And if you pay close attention, you can put together how the different palace locations are laid out. The clones' residences are in front of the structure, facing the gardens. The Imperial landing pads we see in several scenes are situated on the two mirrored towers behind the residences, and we can presume that those house areas like the Memoriam and the room with the holographic display where they meet with Demerzel to discuss essential matters involving distant planets. The throne room is located in the central area behind the towers, with the Mural of Souls off to one side and the Hall of Cleons in its main entrance, where all the previous clone emperors are immortalized. The center tower is the Principium, where the preserved body of Cleon I is on display above the area where the clones are grown. Even though there are only a trio of living Cleons in service at any given time, beyond the short period when there is a Brother Darkness, each of the brothers has backups stored at the Principium. The current exponents' memories are transferred to their backup so they can be used as a seamless replacement in the case of an emergency. They retain all of the experiences and memories of the clone they're replacing, except for their death, so they never realize how that happened. All of this started about 400 years before the show's premiere episode during Cleon I's reign. He is the source of the genetic material, and all the clones are genetically identical copies of him. I guess this makes it fitting that he's the first Cleon we see in the show, as a holographic image of him welcomes travelers to Trantor Station before they descend to the surface via the Star Bridge. In the third episode of the series, he discusses his plans for the genetic dynasty with Demerzel at the end of his life. There's a sense of intimacy in their exchange, and later Cleon XVII will confirm that they were engaged in a sexual relationship. Beyond that, much of the circumstances around the early plans for the dynasty and how Demerzel came to be in their service are kept a mystery through the first half of the second season. What we do know is that Cleon had regrets about not finishing the Star Bridge project and had planned for an infant clone to be a successor. He trusted Demerzel to guide Cleon II and establish the dynasty, but was worried because the world hadn't always shown benevolence to robots. For her part, Demerzel appeared to show true loyalty to Cleon and his plans, and didn't appear to be too worried about her secret being revealed. It's never explicitly stated, but based on how the cycles work, we can assume that Cleon III would be decanted to become the first Brother Dawn 30 years later. The cycle will be established by the time Cleon II becomes Brother Darkness. We never see Cleon II on screen, but the first clone emperor and thus the first Brother Day are mentioned in the first season's final episode. When Dr. Selden's digital consciousness emerges from the vault, he reveals that the centuries-long conflict between Anacreon and Thespis was the result of a plot devised by Cleon II to keep the kingdoms in the Outer Reach fighting each other so that they would never pose a threat to him. Before I discuss the individual Cleons, I wanted to point out one of my favorite parts of this dynamic. even though they're all genetically identical, and that fosters a sense of connectedness and loyalty, they're still human, which means they all still try to individuate themselves. They all want to be remembered as the greatest version of the exact same thing, which isn't exactly easy. I like how they're all following the same lead established by Cleon and reinforced through their upbringing by Demerzel, but then they also tend to not want to be like their immediate predecessor. And since I mentioned Demerzel, having her as an essentially immortal robot that will outlive them all is another excellent choice in the battle for character continuity. Demerzel is the closest thing to a family the clones have. She's the one constant in their lives. She serves the role of their mother when they're young. She becomes their closest advisor when they rule. Some of them look to her for intimacy as Cleon the First did, and then when they become Dusk, there appears to be a phase where they resent her and separate themselves because her attention is focused on the younger exponents. By the end of the cycle, it all comes full circle, and they reconnect so that she's with them at their time of death. This creates some relationship dynamics that just couldn't exist in other stories. The other Cleons we've gotten to know on screen start with Cleon the 11th. The first Brother Dusk we met at the beginning of the series. He was there when Harry Seldon and his followers were exiled to Trantor and initially advised that they should kill Seldon. Through 11, we see how the Cleons struggle with growing old. He took a trip to Trantor Seer Church, inquiring if Gale Dornick was a true seer, which would give credence to the Foundation's claims that the Empire would fall. We also see him struggle with his aging as he starts to lose some of his faculties, and we watch 11 reach the end of his life and prepare for his ascension. We see a ceremony as Brother Darkness where he's presented with the new Brother Dawn, who would be Cleon the 14th. As he's walking to his death, Dusk hears the infant cry and worries something is wrong, but Demerzel encourages him to continue to his death, and we see him get vaporized. Cleon the 12th is the first Brother Day we're introduced to. He was sitting on the middle throne during the attack on the Star Bridge. In response to that, he executed the delegations from Anacreon and Thespis and bombed both planets. That response came after he exiled Harry Seldon and his followers to Terminus. In his years as Brother Dusk, he planned to travel to the Maiden after the death of Proxima Opal, but was left behind on Trantor when Brother Day decided to go himself. At that time, he discovered that the current Brother Dawn was not an exact genetic copy of Cleon the First. We met Cleon the 13th when he was just a little guy. He was the first of the current Cleons to appear on screen and was only 7 years old at the beginning of the series. If Cleon the 12th established the inherent cruelty of the brothers with his public executions, then the youngest clone's innocence works well to show how, although there may be differences in their temperament and how their development shapes them, they're all essentially the same man. As I've already touched on, Cleon the 13th became the first sitting emperor since Cleon the First to leave Trantor, when he traveled to the Maiden to try to prevent Zephyr Halima from becoming the leader of Luminism. In that religion, Halima is trying to reinstate a belief system that would undermine Luminous' loyalty toward the Empire because of their cloning. Empire is concerned that this is another sign that Harry Seldon's predictions might be coming true. When he confronts her, Cleon the 13th decides on the grand gesture of performing one of Luminism's most sacred rituals by walking the spiral. According to their beliefs, this would allow his fate to be decided by their deities, the triple goddesses. He's able to complete the spiral without any extra assistance, but doesn't experience the vision that's supposed to happen at the end. He chooses to lie to the Zephyrs when they ask him about it, describing a vision that makes them believe clones do have souls after all. It works. Having accomplished what he set out to do wasn't enough though, and he orders Demerzel, who is a Luminist herself, to kill Zephyr Halima before they return to Trantor, which again comes back to that idea of how he started out as this innocent kid we meet at the beginning, but still has some of that cruelty that we saw in his predecessor. Cleon the 14th was the infant who cried at Cleon the 11th's ascension, the one that made him wonder if something was wrong with the process. As he grows up, we'll find out that there definitely was. This becomes apparent when we see him jump from his balcony, only for his life to be saved by his personal aura. A palace gardener witnesses this, and Dawn orders the Shadow Master to find out who she is. When Brother Dusk takes him on a hunting expedition, we see that there are things about him that make him different from his brothers that he's trying to hide. When he starts to hang out with the gardener Azora who saw him jump, we learn that one of those things is that he's colorblind. They become very close because as an outsider, he finds everything about how she lives exciting, and she appears to be very sympathetic about his situation because of his differences with his brothers. When Brother Dusk exposes his genetic abnormalities at the Mural of Souls, things come to a head. He created a new section of the mural to commemorate their hunt, designed to expose his color blindness. Fearing for his life, Dawn escapes with Azora only to find out that she was part of the group that was behind his genetic modification in the first place. They planned to make him want to escape so they could replace him with their own clone, which to pull that off, they needed Dawn's Imperial nanoparticles so that their clone could pass as legitimate. Dusk figures out what's going on and arrives to end their plan, and that leaves Dawn waiting for the return of Cleon the 13th to decide his fate. While his trip to the Maiden didn't soften his feelings towards Halima, it did make Brother Day consider letting his younger brother, whom he raised from infancy, live. This is unacceptable to Brother Dusk, and as they get into a physical altercation, like a full-on fist fight, Demerzel brings it to an end when Brother Dawn goes to her for protection, and she breaks his neck. While this was a traumatic experience for everyone involved, it turns out that things are much worse than that when they learn that this extends to the source material. When Cleon the 13th learns that the DNA of Cleon the 1st has been corrupted, he flies into a rage and starts to smash the glass that protects his remains in the Precipium. While we don't see the conclusion of that incident in the season 1 finale, showrunner David S. Goyer said in interviews that he believes Demerzel would be forced to kill that version of 13 in that situation and decant another clone to take his place. From there, the story jumps ahead 138 years, which means that all the Cleons we watched in the first season are dead by the time season 2 starts. Remember that the Cleonic life cycle is only 90 years long. In the second season, Cleon the 16th is Brother Dusk, Cleon the 17th is sitting on the center throne, and the current Brother Dawn would be in line to be Cleon the 18th. From the very beginning, it's noticeable that the genetic drift is causing significant variation, and that while they still look the same, they're no longer exact copies of the same man, and it's been established that they can't go back and fix it since the original clone has also been altered. Cleon the 17th embraces his individuality in ways we haven't seen in previous exponents, and decides to end the genetic dynasty by taking a wife and producing an heir. The story is that the genetic drift is becoming apparent, as in their subjects are going to be able to start to notice, so he'll right the ship through having natural children. Dusk isn't really on board, but his time to rule is behind him, and Brother Day is still too young to feel confident enough to oppose his brother and his Emperor's plan. What's more interesting is that Demerzel seems to be supporting the decision, since from what we know, it conflicts with her directive to preserve Cleon the First's legacy through the clone dynasty. It kinda goes against everything that she's been working for. It seems she's being pulled in many different directions at the beginning of the second season, and it's also revealed that she's in a very explicit sexual relationship with 17 in the lead up to his marriage. While they're together in a compromising situation, his bedchamber is infiltrated by a group of assassins called the Blind Angels who nearly kill him. This is so unbelievable that he even considers Brother Dusk and Dawn suspects based on his decision to end the genetic dynasty. And if we're talking about Empire's bedroom habits, Season 2's Brother Dusk, Cleon the 16th's story is intertwined with the courtesan he slept with when he sat on the center throne. In his time as Brother Day, he chose Rue Corintha as a partner from Gossamer Court, an honor that led to a rise in her political influence. By the beginning of the second season, she's become a trusted advisor to Brother Day's potential bride, Queen Seraph, whom Rue accompanies to Trantor. When they reconnect, Dusk is fascinated by how the sex workers at Gossamer Court have their memories of their intimate encounters with Empire erased after they're finished. Season 1's Dusk represented Empire's struggle with growing old, and Season 2's focuses on their connection to their legacy. Throughout the season, he's at odds with 17's consolidation of power, and through Demerzel learns that his successor has taken steps to have sole authority over editing their memories. From his encounter with Rue, he realizes he wouldn't even know if his memories had been altered. This leads him to team up with Brother Dawn to visit the Principium to ask for advice from the digitized version of Cleon I. Unsatisfied with that encounter, 16 and 18 visit the Memoriam, where all their experiences are archived. While waiting for the metadata, Dusk brings up Legacy with 18, admitting that he let Demerzel handle most of the heavy lifting during his rule, deferring to her in most of his decisions. When the two clones find out that Cleon I's memories are much larger than theirs, it puts Dusk on a path to find answers, and becomes something to give the closing chapters of his life purpose. Since the numbers can be a little difficult to follow because of the time jumps between seasons, remember that the infant who grew into becoming Brother Dawn at the end of the first season was 14. Brother Dusk in Season 2 is 16. There was a 15 between them, but there hasn't been any mention of him or his rule, so we'll just consider him insignificant at this point. There's quite a bit of ongoing conflict with 16 and 17. Dusk had told Dawn that they had been embarrassed by him when he was a boy, and when they're all together and 16 calls for swift action when they learn that the Foundation might have survived, 17 quickly overrules him. We hear Dusk openly express his disdain over the idea of marriage and ending the dynasty, and 17's choice of betting Demerzel, all of which is boiling under the surface when Hoba Mallow jumps his Whisper ship onto the Imperial landing pad to interrupt the execution of Brother Constant and Polyverisov. In the aftermath, Dusk throws his previous calls to make a decisive move against the Foundation in 17's face, and Brother Day fires back by overlooking him, putting 18 in charge of Trantor when he leaves to confront the Foundation on Terminus. The falling out leaves Dusk sidelined, giving him plenty of time to look for answers about their missing memories to cement his legacy. While he wasn't necessarily successful in that, at least not how he was hoping to be, his discovery of a secret doorway behind one of his murals does provide us with some essential information about Cleon I and the beginnings of the genetic dynasty. Dusk makes his way to a secret chamber with Rue, where they encounter a different digitized version of the original Cleon, who tells them how he discovered Demerzel imprisoned in the same place as a child. Emperor Aberanus imprisoned her at the end of the Robot Wars, and dissected her so that she couldn't escape, and she'd been there for thousands of years by the time the young future emperor discovered her. Demerzel needs her own video to get into everything we've learned about her, but for the purposes of one about the dynasty she's been stewarding, we know that she's approximately 18,610 years old. In Asimov's writings, the character is a humaniform robot with a positronic brain, but I'm not sure the show has the rights to use those terms. She tells 17 in Season 2 that her consciousness is decentralized, but later we'll learn that part of the new programming Cleon I applies to her prevents her from transmitting herself from the body she's currently in. There's a mention at one point where she says that Demerzel is a female name because that's the way she presents herself right now. We'd seen that her toolkit had our solar system on it, hinting that she came from Earth. And when we saw its origin as a gift from the first, he confirmed it did come from there. Also, in one of the voiceovers for the flashbacks, they say she told him stories of a homeworld called Earth. Overall, the show hasn't given us much information about her history, but we know she walked the spiral as part of her luminous faith about 11,000 years before the show's Season 1 timeline. The Robot Wars ended roughly 5,000 years before Season 2 began, thus she was locked in the chamber for that long, but that leaves a ton of unaccounted years in between. What we learn from Cleon I is that he discovered this imprisoned robot who'd been segmented in this elaborate way so that she was conscious but couldn't pose a threat to anyone. She became his secret, and he visited her often as he grew into young adulthood. Initially, she would tell him stories about the Robot Wars and other things kids would find fascinating, but as she got to know him and as he grew up, she tailored the stories accordingly, and the relationship deepened. He refused to free her for many years, but eventually worked out what he considered to be a fair compromise. He'd come of age and was supposed to marry to secure his family's dynasty. After his mother died, his argument against freeing Demerzel was that she'd be freer than he was, with his responsibilities as the future emperor. He did become that, and he avoided taking a bride and producing an heir through middle age because he was trying to figure out how to have Demerzel at his side. His solution didn't exactly add up to freedom for her, and actually became a different form of imprisonment. Although she'd started to develop feelings for Cleon, his plan involved putting a chip in her neck that compelled her to serve Empire above all as the primary function of her programming. This bypassed the laws of robotics she was created with. Those initially prevented robots from being able to harm humans, which apparently had been altered, at least in Demerzel, in the lead up to the Robot Wars. We know this because when Cleon inserts the chip, he tells her she can still harm humans, but she can't hurt him, and of course we've seen her harm several humans in service of Empire, even some of his clones when that seemed appropriate. Essentially, the first wanted to be with Demerzel rather than continue his family's legacy, and the genetic dynasty was his fix for being unable to produce an heir in that situation. She supports the decision, as we saw in the flashback in Season 1, and she loves him, but she's also compelled to do those things, which creates conflict. Also, and this is the part that is the most Asimovian, her directive creates many situations where it's not entirely clear what best serves Empire. The clones don't really know, or even that it's a question they should be asking, which relates back to the missing memories Dusk learned about. His pursuit of that led us to understand the dynasty's origins better. He understands that Demerzel is running the whole show, but as she questions when he brings that up, is she a puppeteer pulling her own strings then? It's complicated, as is the decision she has to make to eliminate Dusk and Mu after they learn the history from the source himself, albeit a digital copy. Their swift end means that they won't be passing that information on to the other exponents. 16's story ends there, but as he's having that moment of reconciliation I mentioned all the Dusk's experience before their ascension, he does one final thing that will be important for 18, which I'll come back to. 16 learning that none of them were ever free in his pursuit of purpose and legacy is mirrored and amplified in 17's story. The motivation behind ending the dynasty wasn't entirely clear early on. You just sort of thought he was trying to have his own dynasty. But by the end you realize he came up with this idea that he was an outlier that could upset Psychohistory's predictions. This is where he focuses most of his attention when he's not getting ready to get married, which isn't great since he's not used to dealing with people who don't do exactly what he wants. Seraph is a particular problem because she's strong-willed and she believes he had her family killed. Demerzel convinces him to free General Bel Rios to investigate the Foundation, who'd been exiled to a mining prison camp after disobeying an order from Empire to minimize loss of life amongst his own crew. As Rios gathers intel, Holly Verisov and Brother Constant arrive as delegates sent directly from the Harry Seldon in the vault, which I have to specify since remember there are more than one of his consciousnesses out there. And after they're sentenced to death to set up this show of power for 17, that's when Hober Mallow swoops in to embarrass him on the galactic stage, so that he decides to leave Trantor to confront the Foundation directly. When he arrives, he ignores Demerzel's advice and doesn't listen to General Rios about anything really. He says he wants to be remembered as the Cleon who chose peace, and goes to the surface to meet with the Foundation's leaders. As he inspects a temple, which is more like a factory churning out tech that's far ahead of anything the Empire can produce, he loses it because this is precisely what Harry Seldon predicted. The Empire would fall due to stagnation, which we've seen happening throughout both seasons. And now, far off in the Outer Rim, this group of exiles he thought had been extinguished are thriving. Their advancement is outpacing the Empire. The Cleon who chose peace now chooses to stab the Foundation's director. After that, he visits the vault and can't get Harry Seldon to say that Psychohistory is flawed, even in exchange for mercy for all the innocent civilians on Terminus. So he orders Bel Rios to drop the Invictus on the planet to destroy it. This is also when he learns that he's not an an outlier from Harry, who has seen them and feels sure that's not what's happening here. And that revelation comes just before Demerzel gets a message and tells him she has to leave because something more important needs her attention. As you'd imagine, that doesn't go over well for someone who's lived their life believing there couldn't be anything more important than him. And to drive her point home, she tells him that he'd always been a little off, so she hoped initiating intimacy with him would give her enough influence to correct his shortcomings. That failed, and for that she apologizes. It's a lot of sobering news in quick succession. Still, he manages to force Rios to issue an order to drop the Invictus on the planet, which will kill a lot of innocent people, but is also particularly cruel in that Belle's husband is on the surface. He gets a real kick out of this, and he wants to continue the party by continuing to attack the planets that allied with the Foundation. And when Belle tries to talk him out of it, their Spacer Navigator takes over, and this is when Harry's real plan is revealed. Selden had already made a deal with the Spacers through Hober, and they have now sabotaged his fleet to destroy itself by having the ships jump into each other. Ultimately, 17's predictability makes it all work, which is funny since he lived his life thinking he was acting as an outlier that would upset the prophecy of his downfall. And while it isn't evident here, Harry also had a secret backup plan that will save the people on the planet. 17 is not pleased to be introduced to all these truths and tries to take it out on Hober. Belle steps in to fight him instead, and they have a real go, and just as he thinks he's won and is spacing the general by putting him outside, Rios uses the castling device that was introduced earlier and switches places so that 17 gets spaced instead, ending his run on the center throne. While 14's brother Don got the short end of the stick at the end of Season 1, his counterpart, Cleon the 18th, is the one exponent who gets out of Season 2 in one piece. When he wasn't investigating the missing memories with Brother Dusk, he spent most of the season being seduced by Sereth, who decided she preferred him over his predecessor because, remember, she believes 17 killed her family. He's reluctant at first, but as it comes to light that Demerzel was responsible for killing Sereth's family, and the Queen is arrested for the assassination attempt, plus he's a young guy and this good-looking older woman is making him feel special. They hook up and put all that chemistry into motion, planning on producing an heir the old-fashioned way. But it's 16's final act that I said I'd come back to that seals his fate. Earlier when they discussed legacies, Dust pointed out a green streak on the Emperor's neck in the mural they were looking at. It's the sign of a betrayer. So when 16 is having his moment, forgiving Demerzel for what she had to do in her old prison below the palace, he uses the chroma from his finger that he used to unlock the door to get in there by activating the mural to mark her neck. Dawn sees that when he goes to ask her to release Sereth. Knowing that he can't rely on Demerzel's help, he rescues the Queen himself, and they make their escape from Trantor. While this is the single hopeful note for the declining Empire, in their final conversation with Demerzel, it's revealed that Sereth is carrying 18's child. It also shows just how far off the rails Cleon's original plan for the dynasty is and highlights its fatal flaws. His goal of imperishable permanence is threatened by the genetic drift, and the clone's inherent desire for individuality causes Demerzel so many problems, manifesting in conflicts that undermine her ability to carry out the primary directive of her program. This video focuses on the Creons, but we learn that as individuals, they're all expendable since Demerzel's loyalty is to the system of the genetic dynasty. By the end of Season 2, all the clones from this cycle are dead or on the run, and she simply decants 3 replacements, which I guess I should mention for the first time ever, but she moves on as if it's business as usual because that's all she can do. Of course, there is a cost, which is something she bears in the conflict she experiences alone, and then there's also the inevitability of Psychohistory's predictions. Season 2's group of clones does a great job of showing how fragile the system is, and how they'll always strive to establish themselves as individuals, even though it'll always turn out the same. The show also makes it plain that if there were one person, or I guess one robot in this case, that you'd want to have to do this impossible job, Demerzel is it. It'll be interesting to see what Season's 3 trio brings to the mix and how Demerzel manages the mounting conflict, because as things stand now, she'll be compelled to go down with the ship if that's where this path leads her at the end of the day. As I mentioned earlier, developing this cycle of clones not only solves the problem of television studios not wanting to greenlight a massively expensive anthology TV series that has no recurring characters for fans to get invested in, but it also gives them a lot of exciting possibilities to play with as they move through time. It's not an idea that Isaac Asimov came up with, but I think it creates a situation that feels very Asimovian in how they have this structure that they can interrogate to see where it works and where it can be stressed, just like Asimov did with his laws of robotics in psychohistory. The concept is a fascinating starting point. The actors get to display their ranges across the different exponents, and it really adds some surprises to a story where the ending is not only inevitable, but where the dynasty's demise is the fundamental part of the premise. The writers have utilized these characters to raise the Empire storyline to a place where it equals the source material. And the performances from Lee Pace, Terrence Mann, Cassian Bitton, and Laura Byrne have contributed to some of the show's most memorable scenes. Dynasty has elevated the series in a way that makes it hard to imagine what it would even look like if the creators had decided to go a different way. Even this far in, it still feels like there's an unlimited amount of potential for them to tap into. There's that old saying, the bigger they are, the harder they fall, and the Galactic Empire is massive. I'm ready to watch what that fall will look like with Cleon behind the wheel. To circle back to the books, a character named Cleon I is in the Foundation series, but not in the original trilogy. Decades after that came out and received its fair share of acclaim, Asimov's publishers convinced him to revisit the series in the 1980s. When he returned to the series, he wrote 2 sequels to continue the story, and when he got stuck trying to finish a 3rd and final volume, he went back and wrote 2 prequels, and it's in those that Cleon I is introduced. I won't get into any spoilers about the character, but I think I should mention that generally speaking, none of the Emperors are that important in Asimov's story, since most of the focus is on the Foundation. The same goes for Demerzel, who is an important character, but wasn't mentioned in the original trilogy at all. If you're looking for connections, the Demerzel character from the prequels does have one with Cleon. There are 2 of them. Cleon II is a minor character in the original trilogy, so creating his predecessor was a way for Asimov to connect his stories. And that's pretty much all you need to know as far as the genetic dynasty is concerned, as far as what comes from the books. I would say that the name Cleon being an anagram for clone might be almost as important a factor in choosing the name for the show as anything the character does in the books. And I think that's a great place to leave things. Please like this video if you enjoyed it, please subscribe to my channel if you haven't already, and thanks for watching. I'll talk to you soon.
Before you attack. Get ready.
I promise, and we are going to watch it. It's Elden Lean, okay? Not Elden Ring anymore, okay?
Hey people. Seth here. The following is highly experimental and may come off as disjointed or schizophrenic. I don't care. Elden Ring, the newest hot release by Hideo Miyazaki of Ghibli Studios, famous for classic animation such as Howl's Moving Mausoleum and My Invader Totoro. From Software have really outdone themselves, as this game features not 1, but 2 crustaceans, possibly even more. Unfortunately, I haven't unlocked the ability to swim, so I cannot confirm or deny that. The game begins, and I make my character. His name? Sambubu. His class, naturally, is wretched. I did originally consider prisoner, but I chose not to. I take the key as my starting item, and live to regret it after I get immediate access to a side dungeon and get run over repeatedly by a speeding train. I chose instead to go the other way. After camping a few times, Melina comes by and offers me an accord. I turn it down because I think it's funny. I then proceed to kill Morgott and Godric before I realize I haven't leveled up. How was I supposed to...
Wasn't he using like 5 summons? God damn.
so now I had to say yes. Miyazaki, just because I'm offered the ability to talk to a woman doesn't mean I'm going to take it. I think that's a symptom of bad design. Conversely, I fell for the oldest trick in the book, the warm embrace of a woman's lap, only to find out 100 hours later it's actually a debuff. What did they mean by this?
Based. Yeah, actually, that's very true. Yeah, I never thought about that.
So I'll have to consult a 40-minute lore video to figure out the true symbology behind this item description. And I tell you, passive storytelling at its very best, especially when half a characters either disappear, die, or start T-posing during your playthrough. This might bother people who believe there's a story, which is the equivalent of finding a bunch of random notes and thinking to yourself, damn, that book was wild. Halo's plot is crazy. Have you not read all the secret terminals? On the bright side, Dark Souls lore channels now have a steady source of bread for the next 4 years.
That's the best thing. It's like being an Elden Ring content creator. Now you have, like, because nobody understands what the fuck is happening in most of the lore. So they can go and just say whatever, right? It's like, yeah, well, I'm going to make another 30-minute video explaining this because nobody fucking knows what's going on.
Assure you, you'll know every side character better than your own family. I don't remember which war Granddad was fighting, but I do know Patches. I know that, canonically, he is circumcised. Honestly, I don't judge. I still get to have my wife Ronnie. What I'm criticizing is the involvement of this fat fuck. Celebrated all for helping to weave the narrative experience? Okay, let's see what this dude wrote. Sunset found her squatting in the grass, groaning. Every stool was looser than the one before and smelled fouler. By the time the moon came up, she was shitting brown water. The more she drank, the more she shat. But the more she shat, the thirstier she grew. And her thirst sent her crawling to the stream to suck up more water. I rest my case. J.R.R. Martin is the greatest author who has ever lived. He has also never finished his books. And so...
Oh my god. What the fuck, man? That's so scary. Is that the loathsome dung eater? Is that it? Now we know where he came from.
So fittingly, From Software has embodied the spirit of J.R.R. Martin by never finishing a single quest line. Elden Ring is an ambitious platformer, and if you disagree, you haven't played the game, because half this game is jumping with a head start, or falling into a hole, into a canyon, into the place you originally wanted to, but accidentally jumped before doing so, adding an extra foot to the height of your fall, which turned it into a lethal descent. There's nothing I love more than jumping awkwardly off rooftops. But how do we spice it up? Archers. You love archers.
I hated this place so much. This was the worst area in the fucking game, man. Especially because, like, it's not like it wasn't enough for them to just have one archer. No, they had to have multiple archers. And it wasn't enough for the archers to just shoot one arrow. No, they had to shoot multiple arrows. Holy fuck, man.
They're on every roof, and they've got tracking. And guess what? The sewer levels are back. And this time, they're essential to the plot. Yeah, I'm thinking Game of the Year. Calling them out in your game, Torrent. Absolute genius. So, anybody Googling Elden Ring Torrent gets a bunch of horse pictures instead. I can't wait, and...
Oh my... Bro, like, that's fucking brilliant. I'm just speechless. Holy fuck.
Till Elden Ring 2 features the popular and beloved character Codex de Nuvo 3 Cracked No Virus. But why are we here?
Oh, wait, I gotta take another screenshot.
We're here for the difficulty because we're hardcore gamers. Take it from me. I've already beaten the final boss, John Elden Ring, so I can give a few pointers. Have you ever used a weapon, armor, fast travel, potions, or opened the world map? And I'm sorry to say, but you're playing the game wrong. This game is meant to be played level 1 as a wretch, using a single club.
I've actually heard about this on my playthrough. Yeah, I've heard about this a lot.
Grades. If you disagree, I'll call you a casual. If you ever hear someone talking like this, take pity on them, because this behavior is characteristic of someone who stacks no paper and gets no bitches. This game isn't hard, not because it's not hard, but because video games fundamentally aren't hard. You know what's hard? The circumstances of life, getting a degree, having a stable family, being born with a baby arm. You're born and one arm develops normally into an adult arm, but the other is this stunted mini child arm, which stops growing at like 3 years of age. So you're this freakish monstrosity.
Yeah?
You'll be known around town as Baby Arm Man, and the only job you'll ever have is Baby Arm stock photo, because it's harder for them to get a kid to pose for that. It's a lot more convenient to have a malformed monstrosity on standby. Furthermore, I
Okay, I'm gonna subscribe. Like, yeah, I'm gonna subscribe. That's, that's okay. Yeah, that's impressive. That was just, wow. You never watch it? I've watched it, I just never subbed to the channel. That's what it is. Yeah, I know this guy, but like, I haven't seen his videos for a long time. Holy fuck.
Capture the mission area.
Okay, oh, this is the Ubisoft release.
genuinely believe that pattern recognition is a form of cheating. Your Homo sapiens brain is literally destroying the difficulty of the experience by compensatory adaptation. I hope that people consider this in the future and later learn to recognize that the truest From Software experience would be a lobotomite run, where prior to playing, we perform a frontal lobotomy and sever your prefrontal cortex. Sometimes, the only option you have to preserve the purity of your experience is brain damage. Multiplayer enhances the experience. Sometimes you'll see white phantoms briefly appear. These are players from other worlds going through their own journey. Once, I saw a white phantom appear, teabagging a dead NPC. In this moment, I knew I was playing a masterpiece. Messages and appraisal are exactly how Reddit users believe karma works. You upvote, and you get actual physical nourishment from the karma. Oh look, a message on the floor. Maybe someone out there will tell me something useful. Then you open it and read it. Only
finger butthole.
See, dog butthole, closely followed by Fortnite. According to a true story, once upon a time, Miyazaki's car broke down in the middle of a road. This was during winter, so no help was to be found, when suddenly 3 strangers appeared out of nowhere, sucked him off, and left without even saying a word. And that's how Miyazaki got the inspiration for Souls multiplayer. Gameplay, flawless, stunning, effervescent. Just like Bloodborne was a complex allegory for sexually transmitted HIV, Elden Ring is a rich synesthesia between seeing Swampland and remembering Blighttown or hearing Leyendell long after you've left the capital, because my ears are still ringing from the sound of those fucking trumpets.
That was really fucking annoying. I will give you that. That was so fucking annoying. I hated those. Oh my god.
Actual, real critique. No jokes, no giggles. I think every boss should have a Steak of America outside the boss room. Generally, this is true, but sometimes I gotta walk. And traditionally, I do not consider cardio as part of a boss fight. Now, the walks are more generous than any other Souls game, but...
Yeah, I think they're generally better too. I hate runbacks to bosses. They're fucking annoying. It's like, it's insult to injury. You already lost. Like, what do you have to, what we have to do is again?
Because somebody chose to take a smaller shit in my rice doesn't change the fact that it's still there. Inside my bowl, steaming up my Tupperware. I would also have originally said that the death screen is quite long, but then I realized it's working as intended. You see, when you die in PvP, you have no option but to watch helplessly as someone spams point down and repeatedly defiles your dead body. My complaints are pretty mild. If, like me, you didn't realize Vigor has a non-linear scaling, it would have helped immensely to know that going 10 to 20 makes no tangible difference, but 20 to 40 is all the difference between taking a blow and getting one-tapped by most of the game. I wish I knew that at the start. Luckily, this game is very...
Well, how would you... Alright, you should have known that, bro. Like, you should have known that shit. Like, 100%, dude. What do you mean? Absolutely.
generous with its ability to re-roll your character. If you're still paranoid, you can back up your save at no risk. I've done this more than 100 times without issue, and recommend you do the same, because despite what anybody says, there's a million ways to brick your save. I've done it, I can reproduce it, it's still there. Also, easy anti-cheat is a very good anti-cheat, because it's very easy to turn off. My friend may have done exactly that, and more. Tell me, sir, was he punished? Is he banned? No, some of the later fights have interesting hitboxes, not like I care. I cheesed through that shit. This game makes you realize the greatest companion.
I actually think the hitboxes were fine. I did. I thought the hitboxes were totally okay. There was no bad stuff or anything with the hitboxes at all. And yeah, it was totally good. Like, there was like a couple of them that were bad. Like I didn't like the Moina fight, but not because if I remember back. Okay, I'm back. Sorry about that, boys. Jerk off? Clean, wash hands? Yeah, of course I'll wash my hands. Why not wash my hands, dude? I got a clean dick. Why would I never wash my hands. Look, here's the thing. Is it hitboxes? I think hitboxes were fine.
You'll ever have is yourself. So why not make a copy? Lore. Before continuing, we have to stop and talk about the best character in the game, Dung Eater. Loathsome Dung Eater. Ferocious feaster of feces. Devious doo-doo devourer. Dung Eater consumes excrement, feces, shit even, nihilistic, and with a wicked sense of humor. His greatest desire is to eat the poo-poo and of course murder you and defile your dead body. I think there's a lot we can learn from Dung Eater, but as a society, we're not yet ready for that conversation.
I hope not.
There's many biz. Strength is terrible until you realize you can power stance through the entire game and block everything else with barricade shield for 0 stamina. Going strength and
So let's talk about that. That is called a that is a legitimate strategy, okay? Before, listen, no. You guys want to fucking pull this shit on me? Watch this. Just a minute. Like, I'm gonna pull this shit up, and y'all are not gonna want to see this. Like, you're not gonna want to see this, but here it is. Get ready. Let me see this real quick, and I'm gonna pull it up. I'm gonna show you guys some bullshit, okay? Like, look at this. I was watching Mitch yesterday. Watch this. Watch this. Watch. Ready? Okay. All right, yo, guys, strength, boys, yo. Strength is overpowered, right?
All right, here we go.
Oh my God, strength is
Become
so
a wizard, Harry.
Strength is so OP, it's so broken. Oh my God.
This is it. Put this down. Drink this. Ah! Oh! Ah! Why one-shot it? What? What? Oh my God!
Okay.
Good shit.
I never want to hear about how I'm overpowered again. I never want to fucking hear it. Never.
fortunately, puts you at the highest risk group for naming yourself the Black Swordsman and cosplaying as your favorite slice of life anime. If I see you doing this, I'll summon you intentionally so I can kick you from my world. Dexterity. Do you enjoy katanas? How about double katanas, each one longer than the last, using realistic, historically accurate sword techniques from feudal-era Japan? What about epic PvP compilations? Say no more. Get a river of blood today. Intelligence. Some would say a great deal of their enjoyment comes from learning the moveset of every boss. A rhythmic dance between sword, swipe, and parry. A lethal symphony. Silence only by death. Others.
That's a good way to do it. I didn't think about. I actually just fought that boss on my own, but I could have just let them jump off the edge. Well, shit, that's way easier.
Disagree. I'm confident that if you ask any player running sorcery what's their favorite boss, they'll recoil in surprise and say, I don't know any. I just sit at the back and spam Azure Comet. Faith incantations are very good. Abusing the animation of Catch Flame to cast them instantaneously is even better. And before you say it, I know. It's working exactly as intended. You know what else is intended? This. Also, this. And this. My greatest enjoyment of this game, beyond the exploration, the richness of the graphics, and the scale of the world they made, has been abusing every mechanic I possibly can before it...
See, that's the real fun. Is the cheating is the fun part. Playing the game authentically, that's boring. It's all about the cheating. That's the real good stuff.
Gets patched out, and so inevitably I have taken to abusing other players. You might call them humans. I call them people who use Moonveil unironically, and thus I feel no remorse for any of my actions. In summary, Elden Ring attracts many different responses. Some fillet the long shaft of FromSoft endlessly. Others hate it because of their own incompetence. Walking manifestations of a Dunning-Kruger effect, these people believe that failure is not their own and somehow inflicted upon them by the universe. You can't be bad at video games, as video games are merely a subject matter. No, that is a deficit in your cognitive ability, something that likely plagues you.
There's a lot of people that make excuses for why they suck at the game. Like, for me, Like, if I'm, like, usually whenever I fuck up, it's always on me. It's always my fault. No, I never do. I never do. I always say it's because I suck. It's because I'm getting anxious or, like, I'm making a mistake. It's not the game's fault. It's not because the game is bad. It's because I'm bad. Like, go back and watch it. That's what it is. The bird, I hate the bird. Yes, you're right. I do hate the bird. Like, that's true. That's one boss. Okay, guys? There's one boss.
In
Yeah, that's
every
a
aspect of your life. In summary, if you're bad at video games, you're bad at life. You've got a smooth brain and a low IQ.
True.
Your fate is to be a grunt in the New World Order. And then there's others, like me, who are quietly waking up to the fact that maybe we should have never dropped those bombs to begin with. I guess what I'm trying to say is Elden Scrolls 10 out of 10 garbage. I love it. As always, more content to come, so stay tuned. If you're interested in some merchant multiplayer, password FUGHUNT goes in all fields. First 52
What
of
the
8 get a
fuck?
15% off their first month of FUGHunters.com, the official sponsor of this video. And now, allow me to conclude this presentation with some calming visuals. Rest assured, most of the things seen here can no longer be afflicted on another human being.
That's a
warm
good thing.
thanks to the many members of a Merchants Guild generously funding and bankrolling these videos. You're all truly wonderful. Have a good one.
That was a pretty good review of Elden Ring. I feel like that really, you know, it covered all the important parts, talked about all the things that matter. So he's just killing people in one hit. Damn. One-shot magic. That's right.
Let up in the stand. It doesn't matter who the target is. You know I'm gonna finish it once I get it started, kid. That's the way I gotta market it. Marksman, mercenary.
Oh my fucking god.
Turn you into parts quick. Put you in a box.
Carrying Retaliation. Any thoughts on the story? I haven't looked into it at all.
Because they couldn't take the bleeding from the beating, yo. So you might want to shut your mouth before you end up in a pine box headed down south. Your mama brought you in. I'ma take you out.
Dude, it's just like,
hell you can burn like gout. I'ma make it clear. I won't leave a doubt.
oh my god, like that.
Only route, so you can stick around because it's gonna be a thriller. In
Is
this
that a
world,
kiss
ain't
of
no
death
other
or
option for a
something?
killer. I just gotta get the cash, gotta get
Internet historian? Alright, we'll watch that, then I want to get some gaming in, okay?
the cash, gotta get the
Yeah, that's okay.
price. Just say so. Gotta get the cash, gotta get the